Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
I decided to take a stroll deep into the woods at night where I live a few days ago, and when I got somewhat far into it, I felt this immense cold dread grasp hold of me. I decided to continue walking by myself as I love the forest, and I am used to walking there during the day. Even though my fear got to me, I decided to push on. I got further into it, and I felt I saw something. This shimmering, flickering light. It was not for long, merely a few seconds. It amazed me. When it was gone, I felt relieved. The icy cold fear that grasped me earlier had let go, but it would not be for long. I could still recognize the small and weary path I was on, as I had walked it many times before. I look over my shoulder. I am still completely alone. I could feel that awful, dreadful feeling coming back to me. My fear was beginning to consume me. I wished for the light that I saw earlier to return, but there was nothing but darkness and huge trees all around me. I began to feel a presence near my back. I turned, but yet there was nothing there. Before my fear would take complete hold of me, I ran home, not wanting or daring to look back again. What makes people so afraid of the dark and the forest? Was what I felt even real, or was it my mind being fooled by itself? I still think back on going to the forest, but the dread I felt when I was there takes a quick hold of me, and then I don't want to go again. Am I being paranoid here, /x/? Or is it something to my experience? I am not afraid of the dark, as I've been out during the night several times, but this was something else.
Hi/x/. I want to say that I don't generally buy into paranormal phenomena, or really much of anything discussed here. I don't really believe in effective occult rituals, cryptids, astrology, or most conspiracy theories. And when it comes to most of demonology or stories of paranormal encounters, I'm similarly skeptical. But there's something that happened to me in my childhood that keeps me from dismissing all of it outright. So I want to know if you guys can proffer some kind of explanation for what it was that I encountered. I've never told anyone outside my family about this story, and after a few years of posting on this board, I've decided to share my experience and admit that I have absolutely no real explanation for what happened. Here it goes. Be me, 5 or 6 years old. Not easily scared. Not afraid of ghosts or monsters like most kids my age. Live in a fairly new house out in West Texas. Old by suburban Texas standards, newer by most standards. Single-story house with no basement or windowless rooms. Nothing looked or felt spooky or anything. Mom and Dad slept in a separate room, since I'm a big boy. My bedroom was sparse, consisting of a few shelves and a nightlight. Mattress on the floor BC, too much of being too poor for a bed frame at the time. On the night it happened, Mom tucks me into my mattress and says goodnight. My mom often stayed up afterwards in the kitchen waiting for my dad to come home from work to fix his dinner. Dad worked a lot of evenings, restaurant manager. Tonight was no different. I saw the kitchen light on from under the crack of my door. Had difficulty sleeping. I usually did. Stayed up rolling around until I heard what I thought was my mom's laughter from the kitchen at around 11. Light was still on. Dad must have come home. Drifted off to sleep, but not before getting this chilling sensation. Hard to explain, but it felt like for some reason I'd made a grave mistake going to sleep tonight. Lose consciousness with this ominous dread that 6-year-old me didn't really understand. Suddenly I wake up to a hand on my shoulder, rocking me back and forth. I look up and it's Mom, dressed in a black party dress I'm pretty sure I hadn't seen before with lots of makeup on. She's looming over my grounded mattress, running her painted nails through my hair. She's smiling wide, starts speaking in an encouraging, bright tone, says something like, "Get dressed, Anon, we have to get going." I whine. "No, Mom, it's dark outside." Clock reads 3 or 4. Can't remember exactly what time it was, but I remember that it was an ungodly hour for a kid my age, especially considering I fell asleep late. She replies, "I know, honey, but you have to get up." Leaves the room. I don't ask questions because I'm used to just following my mom around on her schedule. Figured she had to go to some nice event at 3 or 4 a.m. too young to fully grasp what's normal for anybody that's not a kid to do at this hour, so this situation was not necessarily too weird to me. It was unprecedented, though. Don't remember ever being up this late or early before. I dress myself as best I know how, throwing on my little jeans and a polo. She comes back in and stares for a minute, asks me, "Are you ready? Follow me." She turns and walks off. I follow her through the hallway and out into the kitchen. Only when she rounds the corner from the hallway to the kitchen, I lose sight of her completely. Start searching my house, quietly calling for her since Dad was probably asleep. Nowhere in the kitchen, not in the front office. Realize she might be waiting for me in the car. Go into the garage. Nobody. Starting to panic a little. No lights on anywhere. The house is only illuminated by streetlights out of the front windows and the moon behind our back porch. Even being a near toddler and about to fall asleep in my shoes, I thought this was weird. The kitchen light would probably be on if Mom had got up and ready for something. Think she might be in the bathroom still getting ready or revising her outfit. I walk into the master bedroom and freeze. Mom is back in bed. Maybe she forgot about getting me up and decided to nap. Silly Mom, LOL. I shake her awake. "Mom, get up." "What?" "What is it, Anon? Why are you all dressed up?" She's grumbling. As she turns over, I see she has no makeup on. Her party dress was gone and she had on a familiar gray tank top that she often wore to sleep. I'm confused. My face scrunches into an irritated squint. "You just told me to get up and get dressed." "Huh?" "You said we were going somewhere." My pouting wakes my dad up, who was asleep next to Mom. "What's going on, Anon?" Mom's voice becomes firm. "Hold on." She quickly walks out of the room. I follow her, worried she'll disappear around the corner like before. She asks me details about what happened, and I explain the whole thing. She checks the whole house and the locks on the doors. I still today don't know if any of the doors were unlocked. Mom doesn't remember if they were. Not sure what the implications would be either way, but at the time I didn't care. Mom tells me to sleep in her room tonight. Tells me that it was just a weird dream before taking Dad into the kitchen to talk to him, probably about what just happened. Okay, sure, whatever. At that age, I believed literally everything my mom told me. Too tired and young to realize the insanity of what had just occurred to its fullest extent. Got to sleep no problem that night and every night after, with no other issues for the remainder of our family's residence in that house. Even so, I would think about it every few months for the rest of my life. Every time I did, my brain was a little more developed, and with each successive recalling, I had more and more experience to compare that event against. Consequently, the older I got, the more terrified I became. I even found out later that on that night Mom hadn't stayed up after tucking me in. She had went straight to bed. There was nobody up at 11. I don't know what laughter I heard. I don't know what light I saw. I haven't lived in that place for a very long time, and I have no means of going back there to investigate the property anytime soon. What happened to me/X/? This isn't the only weird paranormal sounding thing that's ever happened to me, but it's the only one of which literally no account can be given that isn't insane. I know for certain I wasn't sleepwalking or asleep. I know I wasn't hallucinating either. And if it was something malicious, I have no idea where it was intending to lure me or where I would have to have gone for things to get weirder or go south. And even though I tried to write the account to be at least a little interesting to read, this really did happen to me. I've been thinking about it non-stop lately, and I want answers more than anything right now.
First time posting here. Have lurked for a while and found a sense of community here, but I keep to myself mostly in real life and on forums. Something weird happened to me a few years back that I could never explain. I figured you all might appreciate it. It's not a fantastical story, but it's 100% true, which is why it's unsettling. I don't think I can give it the detail I'd need in Greentext, so forgive my format. There's a road that intersects the horseshoe-shaped street I lived on in Northern Virginia. It's a crooked road surrounded by woods, with its design making it difficult to see beyond 40 feet ahead of you with the way it twists and bends, at least during certain parts. In particular, there's a steep apex with a creek running underneath the road. As a child, Myself and the other single-parent latchkey kids would hang at the creek after school, but I've noticed that the newer generation avoids this spot now, and leading up to my experience, I had started to feel uneasy passing this spot as well, for reasons I can't articulate. Anyway, one night I'm walking back to my house from my friend's house along this road. I reach the apex in the road, where I'm unable to see what's around the bend until I'm above the creek. I had made it a habit of speed walking in the center of the road to minimize the discomfort I felt from the woods. In general, I'm a fairly reckless guy with the stab scars and notoriety to prove it, but some things know how to access the back door of your brain for reasons unknown, and on any normal night that would be how I felt walking through this bend. But on this night in particular, I moved out into the center of the road as I normally did, only to be confronted by a familiar sight. There was a firefly hovering in the middle of the road. I have an admiration for nature, so I smirked and made my way near it, completely disarmed mentally. As I do, I noticed something fairly unique about it. It shined blue, as opposed to the typical yellowish green. I slowed my pace to admire the blue glow, before deciding to reach out and catch it for further examination. There was a street lamp where the woods ended up the street, and I wanted to get a better look at this blue firefly, if indeed that's what it was. As I walked towards it, though, it seemed to fly away from me. The way it moved was abrupt and precise, which made me think that I had startled it. I felt a sense of challenge and took a few more steps towards it to capture it, and it did the same maneuver towards the creek, particularly near the spot in the woods that gave off the uncomfortable vibes. I was knocked out of my childlike wonder for a moment, and noted a few things seemed off. For one, the glow from the creature was blue, that much has been established, but I realized it was the first time I had ever seen a firefly actively avoid being caught. On top of that, fireflies typically don't hold their glow very long, but this thing was a constant blue. I stood there for a moment and watched it hover in place before I started to feel a mild nope, and I continued to keep walking up the road. As I did, I glanced back at where it was, noticing that I didn't seem to be losing it. Whereas moments ago it was actively avoiding me, it was then following me, while maintaining a strict distance from me. It began to feel calculated, as if we were both reacting to one another. I took 2 steps towards it, and it rose slightly and backed away, and then I took 3 steps back and it lowered itself and closed the distance, still maintaining the constant glow. It definitely wasn't a firefly. After staring it down, it started to move back towards the woods, swaying left and right. I had this weird notion to follow it, like I needed to complete whatever was going on. In a sense, I felt lured, and in that moment, it all felt as if I was making those choices, but something clicked in my head, and I was overcome with a sense of dread. It froze and just floated there, so I kept my eyes on it and backed away, before breaking out into a full sprint up the hill to the street lamp. When I looked back, I watched it recoil into the woods. I never saw it after that. When I went home, I immediately tried to make sense of what just happened and searched up blue fireflies, but to no avail. I then spent the night researching bioluminescence, among other ideas, to try and make sense of it. And even if I had found something, it still wouldn't explain its behavior or its speed. The way it moved was more akin to a dragonfly than anything else, but the way it seemed to give up before it went back into the woods, it just felt too calculated, like it had its own intentions. Maybe I'm projecting my fears here, but I get the impression it was trying to entice me into going into those woods. And that's it. Like I said, it's not fantastical, and I'm not making any of the behavior up. Like I said, I felt disarmed, so I must have lingered for at least 5 minutes. I was more in awe and uncharacteristically compliant than anything else. I was in the right mind to take objective details, I would say anyway. I don't know what that was, but the idea that there was a sense of sentience behind its movements and tact just really creates a rabbit hole in my head. I have no idea what it was.
Dude, look up Will-o'-the-Wisp. It's got tons of folklore about a blue light that leads you to your demise in the woods. In folklore, a will-o'-the-wisp, will-o'-wisp, or ignis fatuus, medieval Latin for fool's fire, is an atmospheric ghost light seen by travelers at night, especially over bogs, swamps, or marshes. The phenomenon is known in English folk belief English folklore, and much of European folklore by a variety of names, including jack-o'-lantern, friar's lantern, hinky-punk, and hobby lantern, and is said to mislead travelers by resembling a flickering lamp or lantern. In literature, will-o'-the-wisp metaphorically refers to a hope or goal that leads one on but is impossible to reach, or something one finds sinister and confounding.
Okay, Anons. This is one of those things I've been talking about in various threads and decided to make into its own post. My experience with a creature that can mimic voices. Be me. 16 at the time. I live in northwestern Ohio on the Michigan border right off the lake. Small rural town with nothing more than a grocery store, a Taco Bell, and a gas station. One light town, completely flat with the lake to the northwest, and a river valley that opens up into quite a few swimming holes in the woods. It is summer, and me and my buddies are chasing girls in the local swimming hole, get into a fight with Michigan dudes who are at our swimming hole chasing our girls. Grandpa broke up the fight, he owns the land, and was doing work nearby. Grandpa tells me I'm a man now and need a job and to stop being childish. Tells me his native friend who owned the grocery store would hire me to do overnight stocking for $25 a night. This was the 90s, so hell yeah, I'm down. Work a few nights there, job is literally the easiest shit I ever did. Get to know this old native over the course of a few weeks. Old dude is cool. Buys me beer and smokes. Tells me about the serpent that his people put to sleep under the lake. Cooldude.jpg. He finds out my grandpa and I hunt. Asks my grandpa if I can go trapping with him. We set out in his old beat-up Ford truck, southwest further into the river valley. His family has land in the upper Scioto Valley. Arrive like an hour and a half later in another middle-of-nowhere town in some hick county, much more wooded than where I live. Gather traps and bait and set along the deer trail. Trapping skunks and opossums, groundhogs were acceptable too. Mainly wanted pelts, but if we got a groundhog, he promised to make a stew. Hours pass and we get everything set up and shoot a few doves in the process with my bolt-action .22 that was older than Moses. Back at the farmhouse his family owns, we clean the doves and have a nice dinner. Tells me another native story about a hero of his people that poked a hole in the sky to bleed the bad spirits out of the land, but was bit by the lake snake in the process. There are still bad spirits because of this stupid snake. I don't believe any of it, but it was a cool story. Morning comes and we set along the trail, both armed with our .22. Don't ruin the pelt.wave. Clear a few traps. We managed to get a couple skunks and a coon. Let the coon go. As we round up the bend towards one of the last traps, we hear a deer screaming in agony. Any hunters here know what that sounds like. Literal ree coming from across the creek near the bend we are following on the deer trail. I start to cross, to help the deer. The old dude stops me. His massive hand hurts when he pushes my chest. What? He gives me that look like the man from the tobacco tin, you know the look. Anon, that's not a deer. What are you talking about, .mp4? Anon, think about what you know about deer. What about them? He sighs and gestures to the sun. Midday, sun is high above the trees. Anon, think about it. Deer aren't out at this time alone. Whole time this deer is screaming in what can only be described as pure agony. Also, Anon, we are on a deer trail leading to the water. Why would it be on the other side of the water? Oh shit, you're right. .wbm. He explains that it is a dark spirit who is angry with us, and that it can mimic any sound. He suggests we give it a gift. Trying hard to ignore the horrible sound of dying deer and walking with a senile old dude, we round up the last trap. Groundhog. Field dress the animals and get the pelts ready. He throws skunk head and groundhog guts across the creek. Deer sound stops instantly. Practically shit myself. Few years later, the old guy is long dead. Grandpa is long dead. Now in my 20s, still trapping in northwest and west central Ohio along the Scioto River Valley and into the Maumee Valley, learned a lot about pelts and curing from an old-timer. Out with friends clearing traps in woods near Dublin, Ohio. Had a deal with the farmer that he would pay us 20 a pelt and 50 for every coyote and pig we shot. Finishing up with a skunk in a trap, my buddy goes, "Anon, do you hear that?" Listening intently. A fucking woman is yelling for help. Wait a second. Quick mental math. Something is not right. Grab friend as he starts to walk across the creek to help her. This sounds crazy, but that's not a woman. We need to offer it a gift. Tell other friend to clear the last of the traps and do not cross the creek. Other friend, a total dumbass, starts yelling for the woman to say where she is. I'm over here, across the water. Help, my leg is stuck. Waiting for other friends to get the last trap. Do we need to call 911? Buddy yells. Over here across the water, my leg is stuck, it yells back. Friend looks at me confused. Are you okay? Over here across the water, my leg is stuck. We are all tactically shitting ourselves, even though I'm pretty sure I know what's happening. Friend rounds the corner with the last trap. Empty. We only got a few skunks and a possum. Quickly gut the possum and decapitate the skunk. This bitch is still yelling like a broken record. Strategically chuck the guts and head as hard as I can across the water. Screaming stops mid-sentence. Dead silence. We leave without any further hassle. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you what the old native told me about these things. 1. They hate humans because a long time ago shamans tricked them into specific places that they cannot leave. No idea what they do to us, but given other /x/shit, they probably eat us. 2. They swore an oath to allow passage for all who pay tribute, hence the guts. 3. They cannot cross moving water. Probably bullshit, but all 3 times I've encountered one, they were always on the opposite side of a creek bend and always along the river valleys that feed from the lake. 4. They can mimic any sound they hear and will mimic you if you split up. 5. They cannot be killed except by a powerful medicine man under a full moon, but that passes off the nature spirits and brings bad luck to the family. Here is a river map. I had a few things fucked up originally, but look at the Scioto River. Encounter 1 was near where the Scioto River cuts from Hardin into Marion. Encounter 2 was where the Scioto opens up in Franklin County. I firmly believe both of these encounters were off of the Scioto, but we are talking over 15 years ago.
The Saci, also known as Saci Pereira, Saci Trick, and Saci Secura, is a spirit a part of Brazilian folklore, said to be able to manifest and control the winds as well. He is a powerful trickster spirit that takes pleasure in doping those unfortunate enough to cross his path. He's a very easy spirit to spot due to his appearance. The Saci is described as a dark-skinned young man with a red hat atop his head, a pipe in his mouth, holes in his palms, and a single big foot of which he hops around on. The hat is a magical device, allowing the Saci to disappear, reappear, and become invisible at will, though his hat, even while invisible, seems to remain visible. It is also said to carry a foul odor, and those that would touch or pick it up will never be able to remove the stench from their person. The trade-off is that he may grant a wish for the person upon taking hold of the hat. As stated above, the Saci is a trickster spirit, and with this in mind, is also known to be a shapeshifter. The Saci is said to take the form of a Matita Pereira, a breed of bird that's said to sing melancholic songs. Aside from the above, other trickery, the Saci is capable of ranges from dulling the needles of seamstresses, placing various curses onto objects and people, disturbing animal life within the community, and causing milk to sour and eggs to become incapable of breaking.
Hey/X/ I've been a long-time lurker on other boards. This is my first post. I'm getting married to a woman I've been with for the last 5 years. She believes in ghosts and other paranormal crap like that. Keeps weird crystals to ward off bad spirits. I don't believe in a lot of that, but her father said something to me on his deathbed. He died 2 months ago. I'll post what he said and the story he told me. Him and I were both Boy Scouts in our youth, and we both went to Philmont. It's a huge ranch in northern New Mexico that the Boy Scouts of America use for an extreme hiking experience. I'm going to greentext my experience, and I'll greentext his too if you guys want. Be me. 2011, 15 years old, from Alabama. On a bus going through northern Texas. It's night, looking out on the highway. See what I think is a huge coyote. Think everything is bigger in Texas. Next day they arrive at Philmont in base camp. They have these gates, only ways in and out of camp, made of big totem poles. Excited about hiking over 100 miles in a week and a half with guys I've known my whole life. Get assigned a woman ranger. She's going to be our guide for the first 3 days. Get on the bus. They drive us out on the dirt road for maybe a few hours. drop us off an hour before sundown, hike half an hour, make camp, make the first dinner. 3 dads with us. Mine is one of them. They go to sleep at like 10. Me and the other guy's too giddy to sleep, so around our fire telling stories. Ranger goes to bed, comes back 30 minutes later looking weird, like she was wrong and looked like stuff crawling under our skin. Tries to get us to go with her to the woods to find a nearby outhouse. They had one near every campsite. We all say no. She starts getting weird, so we all go to bed to get away from her. 4 a.m. I have to peek my head out. Oh great, the ranger is still sitting near the dead fire now. Shut tent and death grip knife. Something was making me panic and I couldn't figure out why. The next morning, the ranger makes a joke about how we must have seen a ghost because we were the first group that went to bed the first night. She acts like we are crazy when we ask if she doesn't remember. The next days are weird. I've known these guys my whole life. They are acting wrong, fighting and just doing stuff they wouldn't. 3rd day ranger left. 4th night I have to piss real bad. Wake up tent mate to come with me. Walk out into the woods to piss. Pissing, looking up and seeing a creature that has no right existing is looking at me. It was the top half of that coyote I saw in Texas, but it has antlers. It stands up on its hind legs in a male lower half. Tactically shit pants. Tell tent mate not to turn around. Lock my arms with his back to back, have him lead me back to camp while I stare at this thing. Get into the tent. Get my dad's machete out of his bag. Luckily, he didn't put it in the bear bag. Death grip machete all night. Next morning, huge fight between everyone gets so bad, I and a few other guys start punching next week. We are all constantly fighting. While on the trail, we keep coming across half-eaten deer. Philmont also has free-range livestock, cows and shit. 3rd to last day, we come across a dead cow in the middle of the trail. The corpses are off. It couldn't be bears, there was too much meat left on the bodies. 2nd to last campsite, we get there and there's a 10-point buck's head in the trees near campsite. Father is in the army, so he decides we will stay in a campsite a mile down the trail. Get there, everything's normal. Other groups there too. That night, one of the other's group's bags got ransacked and their bear bag was ripped out of tree. The next morning, nope, out of there without breakfast. Last campsite, nothing happens. Last day, the longest distance we have to go, we'll literally walk back into base camp. The day goes normal. No fight, no dead animal bodies. We are walking through the north entrance, and as we get through, I turn to friends behind me. Start to apologize to them. That's when I see it. Huge coyote on hind legs with human arms fucking waving at me with what I assume is a smile. Year later, Dad's job moves us to East Texas. Dad buys McMansions out in the boonies. Everything is normal. Meet my future wife. Start dating her. Weird shit starts happening. Find dead animals on the road. See coyotes. Finally graduated high school and moved to a nearby city in my first apartment. She moves in. Meet her dad. Parents separated. Cool old hippie, have him over for weeks at a time. Me and him click, talk about everything with him. Tell him how I was a Boy Scout. He asks if I went to Philmont. Say yeah. Under his breath says that's where I met it. He gets quiet and won't talk much anymore. Next day, take him home. We get to his house, he hands me one of the rings. It's a metal biker skull ring that tells me to wear it when me and his daughter go out. Don't hear from him for 2 months. One day, while getting groceries with future wife, she gets a call from her aunt. Her dad was in the hospital. He had gotten bitten by something and didn't tell anyone, so his leg was sepsis. Wife has to go to the hospital to sign paperwork for power of attorney. They amputated his leg. When he gets up from surgery, he is unbelievably upset. Says he can't fight it off now. Fight what off? He quits eating and talking. They put in a feeding tube and put mittens on his hands so he can't take out feeding tube. He somehow gets mittens off, rips out the feeding tube. Get a call from the doc. He has maybe a day. Wife is upset, go see him, he won't talk to her. She runs out crying, get mad, get in his face. He grabs my arm. Says you have to protect her from it. I know you say it at Philmont. It's followed me my whole life, you have to protect her, keep that ring on you at all times. Then he lays back and doesn't say another word. Leave, comfort wife, go home. Next day he dies and we get him cremated. Keep his urn on the mantelpiece. Have a memorial for him at his best friend's house. On the way there, wearing the ring, he gave me something huge, darts across the road. Wife thinks it's a dog, dogs don't get that big. While at memorial, his two ex-wives show up. The first, not my wife's mom, starts going on about how he never wanted to move out of the city. Goes on about how he always was burning sage and shit like that. Starts talking about how dead animals would show up on the doorstep. Wife starts getting upset with me and her dad's best friend. Wife's godfather asks ex-wife one to leave. Wife's grandma outlived her dad while we were there. She pulls me on the porch under the excuse of a cigar and cigarette. Hands me this tiny old book with no writing on the cover. Says it's wife dad's book of John. He took it with him everywhere. Tells me he told her about Philmon. Tells me what happened to him. Tells me I have to take care of wife because she's his only daughter and the creature is out for blood. Go back inside and listen to stories about the guy. Notice a pattern about him. He always preferred the city, and he kept his distance from almost everyone except his mom. Memorial ends, we start to head home. It's dark now. Get halfway home and there's a dead hog, which is weird because the nearest wild hogs are over 100 miles away. Go around it and bullet home. Get home, wife goes to bed. I stay up and open the book of John, a note with a combo, and B25 written on it falls out. On the back is a storage unit places written on it. Show wife go to the storage unit the next day. Pay the desk for the final payment and go open it up. Filled to the brim with old boxes, food, and suitcases. Start going through the stuff. Start finding weird shit swords, knives, notebooks filled with incoherent writings, and newspapers from every local newspaper from 1987 to 2008. Throw most of it away and find wife's old baby stuff. It makes her happy. Keep bitchin' sword. On the way home, I hit a coyote with the truck. Even in some of the cities, the wildlife creeps in. My inner hick kicks in. That's a good pelt at least. Pull truck over. Hop out. Go examine coyote with my pocket knife out. Get close, said it has fucking human hands. Bolt back to the truck. Wife doesn't know why. Start to ask, what's wrong? As I peel down the highway, just say it was too mangled to salvage. Relatively normal for a month. Yesterday, I'm getting up to go to the gym before work and walked into the front apartment's patio. And there's a dead coyote. Rush back inside and grab my machete, go back out and roll it over. No human hands. Grab trash bag and gloves because can't skin it on porch because property management would throw a fit, and take it to the dumpster. On way to work after gym, I noticed an old man staring at me from the sidewalk. Something is wrong about him. I just can't put my finger on it. He smiles at me the same smile that thing gave me on my last day at Philmont. Instantly go home. Call out of work for the rest of the week and barricade apartment. Luckily, wife is between jobs, so I get her to stay with me. This is the first chance I've had to slip away from her to post. Do you guys have any idea what this thing is and how to get rid of it?
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check the Odyssey and Rumble pages for separate archives of previous broadcasts.